The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, he leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul, he leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. These ancient words have echoed through millennia, spoken in moments of deepest despair and highest joy, whispered at bedsides and proclaimed from pulpits, carried in the hearts of wanderers and refugees, of kings and peasants, of the young facing their first trials and the elderly approaching their final rest. They are words that have survived the collapse of empires and the birth of new ages, words that have been translated into countless tongues yet somehow retain their original power to speak directly to the human soul in its moment of greatest need. When we encounter the image of the shepherd, we are invited into a relationship that our modern world has largely forgotten. In ancient times, the shepherd was not merely an occupation but a way of life that demanded total devotion, constant vigilance, and profound intimacy with the flock. A shepherd knew each sheep by name, recognized its distinctive call, understood its particular temperament and needs. The shepherd's life was one of sacrifice, sleeping under stars, enduring harsh weather, facing predators with nothing but a simple staff and unwavering courage. To say that the Lord is my shepherd is to claim a relationship of such depth and particularity that we are known completely, loved unconditionally, and protected absolutely. This shepherd does not drive us from behind with threats and violence, but goes before us, calling us by name, leading us to places of nourishment and rest. There is an astonishing gentleness in this image, a tenderness that stands in stark contrast to how we often imagine divine power. We are not coerced or manipulated, but invited and led. We are not mere numbers in an anonymous herd, but individuals whose welfare matters infinitely to the one who guides us. The declaration, "I shall not want," is not a promise of material abundance or worldly success, but something far more profound. It is a statement of complete sufficiency, of deep contentment that comes from knowing we are held in love that will never fail. In a world that constantly tells us we are lacking, that we need more possessions, more achievements, more recognition, more everything, these words offer radical liberation. They invite us to rest in the truth that we are enough because we belong to the one who is enough, who is everything, who provides exactly what we need in each moment. The green pastures and still waters speak to the shepherd's intimate knowledge of what brings true restoration. Sheep cannot drink from rushing, turbulent streams, they need calm water or they will not drink at all and will perish from thirst even in the presence of abundant water. The shepherd knows this and leads them to places of peace where they can be nourished without fear. How often do we find ourselves beside turbulent waters, trying to drink from sources that only leave us more anxious and depleted? The shepherd's wisdom leads us away from the frantic and frenetic, toward the quiet places where our souls can actually receive what they need. These green pastures are not found by accident. The shepherd has gone ahead, has searched out the best grazing, has ensured that the flock will find nourishment. There is intentionality in this care, purposeful provision. We are not left to wander aimlessly, hoping to stumble upon what we need. We are led with precision and love to exactly where we need to be. The restoration of the soul is perhaps the most intimate miracle described in this psalm. Our souls become fragmented by trauma, scattered by anxiety, depleted by the relentless demands of existence. We lose touch with who we truly are beneath the layers of performance and protection we've built. We forget what it means to simply be, to exist in peace and wholeness. The shepherd's presence and provision work a healing that goes deeper than physical rest, reaching into the core of our being and making us whole again. To be led in paths of righteousness is to be guided in ways of right relationship, not out of rigid morality or harsh judgment, but for the sake of the shepherd's own character and reputation. The shepherd's name is at stake in how the flock fares. This is not about earning divine favor through perfect behavior, but about being guided by one whose very nature is goodness and whose greatest joy is to see us flourish. We walk these paths not to prove ourselves worthy, but because we are already claimed and loved, and the shepherd delights in seeing us become all we were created to be. Then comes the valley, the shadow, the darkness that every human life must eventually traverse. This is not a detour or a punishment, not a sign that we have lost our way or fallen from grace. It is simply part of the journey, an inevitable dimension of existence in a world marked by mortality and loss. The valley of the shadow of death represents every dark passage we must walk, every season when light seems extinguished and hope feels like a distant memory. It encompasses grief that threatens to swallow us whole, illness that strips away our sense of control, failures that shake our identity, betrayals that shatter our trust, and the ultimate confrontation with our own mortality that awaits us all. What transforms this valley from a place of terror to a passage we can traverse with courage is not the absence of darkness, but the presence of the shepherd. The psalm does not say the shepherd removes the valley or carries us around it, but that the shepherd walks through it with us. This companionship changes everything. We fear no evil not because evil is absent, but because we are not alone. The one who knows us completely and loves us infinitely is beside us in the darkness, and that presence is stronger than any shadow. The rod and staff are instruments of protection and guidance. The rod defends against predators, driving away threats that would harm the flock. The staff gently redirects wandering sheep, pulling them back from dangerous edges, guiding them towards safety. Both represent the shepherd's active engagement in our welfare. The way divine care is not passive observation but dynamic intervention. We are defended and directed, protected and guided, by one whose vigilance never wavers. There is profound comfort in these simple tools, in the knowledge that we are not expected to navigate life's dangers alone, that we need not rely solely on our own strength and wisdom. When we feel inadequate to the challenges before us, when we recognize our own vulnerability and limitation, we can take comfort in the shepherd's strength and skill. The rod and staff remind us that we are defended by one who cannot be overcome, guided by wisdom that sees what we cannot see. The image shifts dramatically as we move from the valley to the table. Here we are no longer wandering sheep but honored guests at a feast. The shepherd becomes host, and we discover that the one who led us through darkness now celebrates with us in a place of abundance and joy. This table is prepared with intentionality and care, spread with provision that speaks of lavish generosity rather than mere survival. What is most striking is that this feast occurs in the presence of enemies. We are not delivered from all opposition, not removed from a world where threats and challenges exist. Instead, we are given a place of security and celebration even while dangers remain visible on the horizon. This speaks to a peace that is not dependent on the elimination of all difficulty, but on the presence of the one who is greater than any difficulty. Our enemies may observe, but they cannot touch us. They cannot steal our joy or diminish our worth. We feast in their presence, demonstrating that their power over us is broken. The anointing with oil is an act of honor and healing. In ancient times, oil was poured on the heads of those being set apart for sacred purpose, on wounds that needed soothing, on guests being welcomed with special favor. To be anointed is to be marked as belonging, as chosen, as precious. It is an intimate gesture, one that requires closeness and tenderness. The shepherd host anoints our heads, speaking blessing over us, consecrating us for purposes beyond our imagining, healing the wounds we've sustained in our journey through the valley. The overflowing cup captures the extravagance of divine provision. This is not a carefully measured portion, not the minimum necessary for survival, but abundance that exceeds our capacity to contain it. It speaks of generosity that knows no bounds, of blessing that cannot be exhausted, of a love so vast that it spills over every boundary we might try to construct. We do not have to hoard or grasp or fight for our share. There is more than enough, always more than enough, flowing from a source that will never run dry. Goodness and mercy are personified as faithful companions who follow us through all our days. They are not occasional visitors or fair-weather friends, but constant presences pursuing us with relentless determination. When we imagine being followed, we often think of threats, of predators stalking prey. But here we are pursued by goodness and mercy, chased down by love and compassion. No matter how far we wander, no matter how lost we become, these divine attributes track us, find us, and draw us back into the circle of grace. This following is active and intentional. Goodness and mercy do not wait passively for us to find our way back, but come searching, reaching into whatever far country we've fled to, whatever hiding place we've sought, whatever darkness we've embraced. They refuse to abandon us to our own devices, insisting on our belovedness even when we have forgotten it ourselves. The promise that this will continue all the days of our lives is an anchor for the soul. Not just today, not just in seasons when we feel strong and faithful, but every single day of our existence. In moments of triumph and in hours of failure, in times of clarity and in seasons of confusion, in youth and in age, in health and in sickness, goodness and mercy will follow us. This is not a relationship we can outgrow or outlast, not a blessing that expires or a grace that has limits. It is a lifelong companionship, a covenant that holds firm from our first breath to our last. And beyond our last breath, the promise extends. We will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is our ultimate destination, our true home, the place where we have always belonged and toward which all our wandering has been leading. The house of the Lord is not merely a physical location but the very presence of God, the place of perfect belonging, of absolute safety, of complete joy. To dwell there forever is to rest finally and fully in love that will never end, to be home at last in the embrace of the one who created us, redeemed us, and sustained us through every step of the journey. This dwelling is described as eternal, transcending the boundaries of mortal life. Death is not the end of the shepherd's care but a transition into deeper intimacy, into more complete union. The relationship that began when we first heard the shepherd's call continues forever, unbroken by the limitations of physical existence, undiminished by the passage of time. We are held in love that is stronger than death, claimed by grace that will never let us go. These words of the ancient psalm are not merely beautiful poetry or comforting sentiment. They are a declaration of the deepest truth about reality, about who we are and whose we are. They name the fundamental relationship that gives meaning to all other relationships, the primary identity that grounds every other identity. Before we are anything else, we are the sheep of this shepherd, the beloved of this divine host, the ones pursued by goodness and mercy, the ones destined to dwell in love's house forever. When we carry these words in our hearts, they become a lens through which we can see all of life differently. Challenges become opportunities to experience the shepherd's guidance. Darkness becomes a place where we learn to trust presence rather than sight. Abundance becomes a celebration of generosity rather than something to hoard. Enemies become witnesses to our security rather than threats to be feared. Every day becomes another chapter in the story of being loved, led, protected, provided for, and welcomed home.